Hello, guys. Welcome back to Sweet and Sour Soccer. And Forest fans, we are talking about you today. What's happened so far in the season, of course, what happened in the summer. And we're going to talk about whether there may need to be a change at Forest. Do I believe that? We'll find out very shortly. But do us a favour, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. And if you're feeling generous, as always, share the stream with your friends and family. Scott, I want to ask for your opinion first, but before I do, I just want to give you a quick stat. Forest last two games, they've led both at half time. They've scored 2 goals in the matches, both games, and still lost. It's not good, is it?
No, it's not. But if you're going to pull out the positives, which you try to, is the fact that the goals are clearly there. You look at the last two, and you're always going to argue, yes, they're against the two other teams that have come up, and it's not good to lose both those games. But what is clear is Forest have still got goals. They did score 2 there. Problem is they also conceded 6, losing both of those games 3-2. We've seen changes in the defence as well. Obviously, new personnel come in. It was Bolly that had a turn this week, obviously, to go into the defensive position. And you know what? I do look at it though, James, and I think like when you actually look, yes, Forest brought in 21 players. Still feels a little bit of a weakness when I look particularly at the centre backs, and I don't know if that's just me, but you know, I'm not fully convinced when looking at that the 3 centre backs, especially the ones that started on Saturday, Friday rather, whether is, you know, whether they are up to the Premier League standard.
I mean, to be honest, I thought they brought in 22 players, not 21. I thought it was 22. Guys, let us know in the comment. Was it 21, 22? Irrelevant of that, it's still a hell of a lot. And I can't see that ever being broken. But I do know what you mean. Obviously, Bowley came from our club, Wolves, who they also got Morgan Gibbs-White from as well. And Bowley hasn't played a lot of football, had that big injury from Morgan Gibbs-White at Wolves, which ironic. Scott Cooper came out and made a comment in an interview that he thinks that his players are scarred after Bournemouth. We always say we want managers to say what they're thinking and how they feel, and players alike as well. Is that a comment he should have maybe told the players behind closed doors? Do you think that, you know, other teams should know that he thinks that his players are effectively a bit frightened at this point?
It's an interesting comment, especially when you look at Leicester coming up next. Now, I'm sure no Forest fans will need to know this, and I'm sure a lot of neutral fans will know as well. But this is one of the biggest games for them in a long, long time, coming up against their local rivals in the Premier League. Is that good information to give away at that point when you've got the local rivals? Yeah, I'm not so sure it is, but it kind of comes back to the fact that we've also seen 21, 22 new players brought in. I think in these situations where you need to hold out for a lead, you're kind of looking to someone that knows the ins and outs of the club. At the moment, aside from Steve Cooper himself, are they still trying to identify who are the leaders on the pitch? We know that there's quite a lot of players that have got some experience, but a lot that haven't got Premier League experience. Yeah. And even those that have, you know, you're looking at Jesse Lingard, who actually didn't start at the weekend either, as maybe one of those. You wonder, is he that type of character that can bring that leadership quality in? And that's the problem that you are looking at, aren't you? You're kind of wondering, is there a leader there physically on the pitch that has that experience as well, that's going to be able to help the players through these kind of situations? Because I think that's clearly needed.
No, I don't disagree. And what he's also tried to do is he has said that, listen, there's no one to blame. It's just myself and the players. And I think the players need to understand that you know, there's no external reasons. They can't blame it on a small squad. Let's put it that way. My headphones are falling out. They can't blame it on a small squad. They can't say that they've been unlucky. You can't keep being in front at half time and losing the game. And you mentioned it earlier, especially against Bournemouth and Fulham, you've got to be getting points there. Scott, next 4 games, Leicester, Derby, and look at their start to the season. Leicester, the only team to concede more than Forest. Then they play Villa. Good result against Southampton and, of course, City the week before, but haven't been convincing in their performances. They play Wolves, who don't concede goals, but obviously don't score them as well. And then Brighton. And I think you mentioned off screen, we don't know what Brighton are going to be like post Potter. So on the surface, Leicester, Villa, Wolves, Brighton, you could get 8, 9 points from that. They look like nice fixtures. But on the other side of it, you pick up 1 or 2 points from those 4 games. It's one of those runs where it looks great, but if you don't get the results, you really are starting to worry.
Yeah, I agree. And what might be interesting, of course, is we spoke about the fact that Forest still have goals. And what's really interesting is if you look at the formation that Cooper's been playing, yes, it pretty much been the same formation as what got them up in the Championship. We know that the wing backs advancing far up the pitch, typically playing that 3 at the back rather than your typical 5 at the back. But one thing that you would say against City is that became much more of a cohesive 5. The wing backs weren't advancing as much. What's interesting, though, is you could look to do that. The issue that you're going to have there, though, is when you look at the attacking options, you've got Brennan Johnson, you've got the likes of Lingard that can use Morgan Gibbs-White. All 3 of them, I wouldn't say are out and out, wingers as such. So it works quite well that they play an inverted role and have the wing backs also advancing up the pitch. So you kind of wonder what else they can do to maybe carry on the goal scoring, but then shore things up. And I think you have to look at that central midfield. And one player that I wanted to pick out in particular was Lewis O'Brien. Didn't start at the weekend, but when he has come on, he's always made a difference. I think he's one of those players that really needs to start. He knows how to dictate a midfield. He also can do the defensive responsibility. And we know that there is going to be tweaks within the team, but we're now, nearly 9 games into the Premier League season now. I think Cooper needs to start trying to identify the best he can, because I don't think it's easy when you've had that many people come in, but what is the best 11? Because we've seen, obviously, the defensive line switch. Yeah. We've seen midfield options switch. We still don't know whether he prefers going with Brennan Johnson up top, for example, or whether he prefers playing him as one of these inverted wingers and having Awanui obviously start, which happened at the weekend. So there's lots of options, but I think the main thing for Steve Cooper going into these period of fixtures is continuity. And I think he really needs to start identifying what is his best squad and what's the squad and players he can trust.
Well, that's the thing. You've mentioned a few times now that they have got goals in them, and they have. I mean, they've scored twice as many as Wolves. They've definitely got goals in them from our perspective, but they have only scored 6 this season. Let's bear that in mind. 4 of them have come in the last 2 games. They'd only scored 2 goals after their first 5 Premier League games. They were worried about that, but they are starting to find their feet now in regards to putting the ball in the back of the net. Obviously, maybe for those who don't know, if you're a new subscriber to the channel, we don't do it as much this season, but last season you focused on Championship predictions week in, week out. You really got to know this Forest team. We watched them struggle so much at the start of the season, blossomed as the season went on, and we covered them in the playoffs, of course. And I know it's different because it's such a big animal coming from the Championship to the Premier League. You mentioned about not knowing their best 11. From what you saw last season, they didn't make many changes. I'm trying to think of when I watched your Championship videos last season, unless it was an injury or maybe a bit of a niggle or maybe 1 or 2 players a little bit out of form. Cooper liked to keep the same team. Now, because he signed so many players this summer, do you think almost he's trying to appease the board by saying this is why I've got so many players? Do you think he's trying to mix and match and get this and that? Or should he just think, right, I think this is a team that's going to get me the most points. And if the board moan, as long as we stay up, I don't care.
And I think it's an issue, isn't it, really? I don't know whether it's so much the board, but or just say the fact that he's had that many players come in, which they obviously needed to make a lot of signings to beef up the squad. You could perhaps question, could they have done with 1 or 2 less? But I think they've definitely gone for the strategy that the cream will rise to the top, that famous saying, in terms of, getting enough players in that are going to battle for positions. But the problem with that is for Cooper that he needs to give everyone a chance, because those that are sitting on the bench may be feeling that they haven't had a chance. It's hard to have that many players, but I think a lot of them honestly believe that they were going to come into the club and start, or at least be a regular feature in the squad, especially some of these big name signings, your Lingard, your Morgan Gibbs-White. Let's not forget he left Wolves because he wasn't a guaranteed regular starter. and he liked the Forest project, but he definitely would have thought of himself as a starter. Awanui, he at the time came in as a record-breaking signing when that signing was made, 25 million. And there's a lot of those kind of players that you could pick out where you could go, they probably thought they were going to start. So if they're not going to start and they're not going to be his ideal 11, they're going to at least want to feel that they, they've had the opportunity to show what they're about. So it's a hard balancing game for Cooper, I honestly think, because there's so many that probably come in feeling that they're going to be in that starting 11. And of course, we know what can happen to the overall squad morale if that does not happen.
No, I am with you there. I'm going to ask you one question before we wrap it up because these headphones keep falling out. Guys, I do apologise. We'll try and get it fixed for next video. You're in charge. You pull the trigger. Looking at the next 4 fixtures, looking at the international break coming up, also the World Cup, putting emotion aside, because I know you do like Cooper, you saw what he did last season when you were following the championship so closely. This is a decision that could make you 100 million next season, or you lose it if you go down. Do you pull the trigger on Cooper, and do you do it before these next 4 games, or do you give them him after what he's done, getting them in the league for the first time in 23, 24 years? What do you do, and how long do you take to make that decision?
I mean, it's an interesting one because outside of the Forest fans, you probably won't find a person outside of Forest fans that likes Cooper as much as I do. I think he's an absolutely fantastic manager. I think he can go right to the top, whether that's with the continued spend of Forest or whether, a Potter situation ends up happening. I honestly feel he's of that caliber and for me, even if these next 4 fixtures don't come to, what you'd expect, I just don't think the answer is to get rid of him. I think he's proven enough from what he's done over the last few seasons, not just with Forest, but with Swansea too, and also with Forest last season. Yes. I think he's earned that time, but it is going to take him a long time. I still think Forest will be fine. I do. I feel there is a bit of panic, and I can accept why. But I think Forest get good after Christmas, especially when he's outlined, these are my players. But it might need the board to do some smart things in January. And if there is a few in the camp that felt that maybe they should be starting and aren't, do you be smart? Do you maybe move them on? Do you loan them out? Do you do something that, if morale does drop, that can keep the morale going? But I'll throw the same question back to yourself. Obviously, you like Cooper, but you're probably not. I really like Cooper. We know that on our group chats and stuff. I'm always saying he's an advocate for one of the best managers in the league. How long do you think you give him before you pull the trigger?
I think I give him 3 of the next 4 games. I think if he loses to Leicester, that's a big one, especially after what Forest did to them in the FA Cup in January. That big, embarrassing defeat against for Leicester. Big win for Forest. If they lose that, you lose to Villa. And then let's say you draw or lose to a Wolves team that can't score. I think you might have to pull the trigger. I like the guy, I really do, very humble, but an owner that spent 140, 150 million this summer, he's not going to want to go down first time of trying.
And I'm
Guys, let us know your thoughts in the comments.
I really am, because I'm looking forward to seeing what Forest fans think of the issues at the moment. I'm also looking forward to seeing which one of us is going to get pelters for our opinions, because obviously very opposing opinions on Cooper.
Yes, I do like him. I really do. Guys, let us know your thoughts. Do you think he'll stay up? And would you rather be, going through these next 4 games with a new manager bounce or sticking with him?
Yeah, really looking forward to seeing what you guys think. And as usual, please do hit that like button. Please do subscribe. We're going to be looking to do a Forest watch along at some point, maybe. There are obviously going to be more Forest chat videos, as well as our regular Premier League based videos. So there's a lot for you on this channel. So hit that like button, hit subscribe if you've not done so already. And we'll catch you on the next video. Take care. Goodbye.